Hi folks, we are going to be looking at a couple blues songs. I introduced page 107. Often people find this to be a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm not just going to play it through again. I believe I sent you a link. I'm going to double check. I remember that I played through this. I think I kind of showed this a little bit. I showed some of the like showed a few spots that are a little tricky. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through this in steps like I present it in the classes, but normally in a live class, I introduce it, I play part, then I do a section, explain a little bit, then people have headphones and they work on it. Then I play it again, we add a little more. So it's kind of a back and forth between headphone time where people work and me presenting. But what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to do it that way because that would mean just stopping and having a gap. And we don't need that because you can stop your video. But I'm going to break it down like I do for the classes, but I'm going to then keep going. And what you can do is when you need to see one section, you can just start and stop. So what I might do before we start this is play it all the way through. Then I might play a shorter section. So right now, our target is going to be 4 measures. So this is a blues form. The page has 4 lines on the page, but there's only 3 lines of music. It's called 12-bar blues. That's explained at the top of your page. And when you hear this, I have a feeling most of you are going to recognize you've heard this kind of a pattern before. So here we go. This is the first phrase of 3. Then there's going to be a change. But we're going to do one thing at a time. What I like to point out is in the right hand, you've got those intervals, the 6 repeated 3 times. So students would do that. I give them a minute. Then I do a little more. People would try that. Then I would explain about blues or swing feel and straight eighths. At the bottom of this page, it says, the eighth notes may be played a bit unevenly. I'm going to play the last 2 beats 2 different ways. The way I just played it, that's the swing feel. I'm going to play it now straight eighths. That's actually just regular, normal. But if we're comparing them, we would say straight eighths. I like swing feel. However, sometimes it can be a little harder as you're learning it to do that. So sometimes it's easier to get it straight eighths. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play those 4 measures straight eighths. That's where it changes to the second phrase. So you can play the rhythm either way. Either way is fine. I do it with the swing, but a couple times I'll show it straight too. So back to, we just did the right hand, but the left hand's easy. 3 beats of a 6. If we look at the last 2, you can practice that part separately and get used to that. It's good to link that into the next note because that just follows so quickly. So I would have people practice that. Then I would point out the left hand's easy. Then I would say the second measure is identical. Then people would do that. We get to the next measure, and what you can see is if you divide it in half, both halves are the same. That's one half. That's the second half. And what that is that's just the end of the first measure. So there's a little theme or motif here, and it's used a lot. You'll see it gets varied. So measure 3, even though it kind of sounds the same, it's going to be a little different. And so people would practice that, and then we would lead into the next measure. And measure 4 is a little tricky because of the way it feels. So let's look at measure 4, right hand. If we divide this in half, both halves are not the same. The hardest one is the first, and it's not so much that it's really hard, it's that it's different and it's new. The B flat does that. It's something about your hand being back a little bit towards the B flat and having to kind of get in there. I let my fingers play a little bit back into the black notes. But if you have very large fingers, for some guys that are taller and have big fingers, you might discover that you hit 2 notes. Then you really do need to come back here. Because if you're here, this is skinnier. More room out here, less room back there. So that is just more challenging because it's a different thing with your hand. There is nothing I can do that will make that easier. What makes that easier is doing it carefully, slowly over time. So you might break down the first 2 beats, and I'm going straight eighths now. I'm overlapping. I'm doing one section and overlapping into the next. Now let's do the second half. That's much easier. Now, as we look ahead, that's going to lead into, and that's going to require that you reposition a little bit because the thumb's shorter and it's on a black note. Beginning of the song, your thumb's out. Measure 5, your thumb goes back. Just let your whole hand go back. Don't really twist. Twisting's not the easiest way to do it. Try just to look where my pinky is. Instead of out there, look where I am. Back 1.5 inches. Alrighty, so let's look. We're now on the second musical phrase. You'll notice that some of that is an exact repeat. We're going to do the part that's different. Line 2, second measure. I would have people practice that. E flat, E flat. And if you missed it, I'm not sure the page. I think it's called Rocket Away. Yes, page 96 explains at the top about black notes. B flat, E flat, D flat. Sharps go up. F sharp, G flat. Yes, one note can have 2 names. There's a word for that, enharmonic. You don't really need it though for our course. You're just going to play a couple different flat notes. Okay, so we're going to look at phrase 2. It's in the second line, second measure. You're going to do that till it's comfortable. Then you will add that little part. And then you'll overlap because there's fast little notes and they lead to the next. That will make more sense when you do it, when you see how quickly your hand needs to get there. You do want to practice overlapping the little sections. So once you do this, it repeats, then this you've already done. Which leads us to the final line of the song, the final phrase. Got to be careful with the words line, because in this case, the lines of the actual music don't line up with the lines on the page. And that was a little pun. Hope you got that. Now we're going to start. This is the hardest part of the whole piece. Left hand has the G7 chord. It's the only time that appears. The right hand is where it's hard. Common mistake people make is they get this right, but for the next part, instead of accurately reading the notes, they do what their hand did. They do the finger pattern, which is, because in the beginning we skipped a note, but here we don't. So watch out for that, and that little shift is going to take a lot of work. Here's how I do that. I kind of, when I bring my 2 finger there, my hand starts to shift a little bit over, and then my thumb's going to reach. I'm starting to shift. I slide a little. You can slide. Here's something really cool. It's not as easy on a black note, but it's possible. But take a finger, 2 fingers pretty easy. Press a note down. Keep it down, but you don't really have to press hard. Just lightly move around. It's very easy to keep it down. Now, that being said, some keyboards, the notes kind of press back up on you. Depends. But the digital keyboards, digital pianos we have at Drexel, they're more like an acoustic piano. Once that note's down, it takes very little effort to hold it down. I personally have a bunch of synthesizers upstairs, and if I hold that down, there's a little spring that's pressing back on me. It takes more work. So that might be how your keyboard is. So if that's the case, you'll have to simply work with what you have. It just might make this part a little harder till you get used to it. So play the G, and I start to slide. And that's just going to take practice. If you've had some piano before, this might be easy for you. If not, that's just going to take a lot of work. But the good news, and I've said this in writing, the good news is instead of a blues quiz and a final, we're just going to have one, and you can choose. You can do the blues for your final or the final for your final. So I'm going to show you one more thing with sliding. And why would I slide? I would slide when I might need to get a black note. This is one example. There's just countless times when you do it and you don't even know you're doing it. I could do the same. Because your hand's shaped differently for different chords, sometimes you need to be back further. So instead of, and then rapidly diving in for that, by sliding. Now another technique, it's kind of walking, and you can do that here. Because this is a camera, I'm gonna kind of show you the technique with 2 hands. This is why I call it walking. See when I'm walking back? But you can do that with 1 hand, but you guys won't be able to see this as clearly. I'm going to start out here, little tippy toes. Now it gets tight. way back here, it's usually much harder to play. You don't need to go back here, but sometimes you need to be here. Sometimes out here, here if you're playing black notes. So slow motion, walk, 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 step, step. So you can slide, or you can kind of sneak back with little steps. That being said, that's the biggest challenge. If we look at the last two measures, second to last measure is exactly like measure 3. Last measure, almost the same, but a little different. Okay, so last measure. B flat, fermata, hold it out. Left hand. So it's not really harder than anything else you've done, but you'll have to do it because it's just a little different than everything else. All right, that being said, I am going to go over what's new for you, assuming that you're new to piano and just getting to this level. Obviously, if you've played before, this isn't new to you. Page 108. This goes over the blues progression. It gives charts at the top. You can go over that. It introduces the natural sign. So that has nothing to do with blues. That's just random. A natural sign cancels a flat or a sharp. What this piece is about, and personally, it's not really bad, but I don't find it terribly exciting. It teaches some concepts. So I always go over it because it teaches some things you do that your hands kind of smush together. I'm going to play you 2 lines. So it is what it is. It's okay. But what's completely new here, your hand is smushed up. Second measure, similar. But there's a 1 on F natural. And that 1 is going to shift your hand up. Your hand starts here, but it's going to be like that. Why does this happen? Because we have 5 fingers on each hand, but look at all the notes we got. If you got a full piano, you've got 88. If you got a keyboard, maybe you have 76, 60 some. A lot of notes, not that many fingers. So that's what's important here. The rhythm's kind of cool. And the rhythm is consistent. Once you have that, it doesn't change. So when you first do this, your hand is smushy. Your fingers squeeze in together. Your thumb reaches up from here to here, and then your hand opens. That's all that is. Now let me throw this in. I've been kind of telling you all along, we're losing a week. We're missing a week this term. On top of that, we're doing all this back and forth with videos. So if you are really overwhelmed with your work, I would suggest watch this stuff. But I'm going to, once you're done, I kind of spelled it out. I'm going to send everything tonight with what you have to do to finish. It's less than it normally would be, but you have choices. So be aware you have choices. You may want to listen to things first, look over them a little bit, and see what seems like the best choice for you, which is probably going to be the easiest, but it might be what you like the best. Then, based on your total program, what you've got in all your classes, if you're really pressed for time, my suggestion is at this point, you just finish up doing what you need to do. Unlike the people in 190 that want to take 290, we got to cover everything they need. Once you're done this class, there's no third piano class. If you do want to continue piano, you can go into the private lessons, or you can just work with the book and YouTube. Now, I'm going to show you the second line. It starts the second, actually, this case, the second line is the second phrase. It starts at the very end of the first line. F natural. And once again, your hand is going to be, look at this. I'm going to keep them all down. See how close those fingers are? That just feels really weird. So if you are doing this, go slow. Once you're used to it, it doesn't feel funny to me. It feels perfectly natural to me, but I know darn well it feels really strange to start that. So the last line, there's a pickup at the end of line 2. B flat, back to B natural. So the right hand in that last line, I don't think that's as hard to play. Your hand isn't so smushed up. Okay, I said you may choose 109 as a choice. I'm really not going to work on it. There just really isn't time. I'm just going to go over a little bit so you can see, little taste, see if you like it. It's kind of fun. It's like a lazy, slow blues. So I believe that's where I'm going to stop today. Now, we don't do page 110, 111. I always skip that. What I am going to be covering, because, and you know, I'm realizing, I think I put down that menu, this. That is an option, and I don't know if I said the blues is an option. I honestly don't remember, because unlike every term, everything I'm doing now is kind of different because the pacing's different and how we're doing it. So I will definitely clarify, but the main thing is you do have options, but you really probably can't do the minuet unless you do page 113 and 115. That's not for this video, but I pointed that out in writing, and I'll play you a tiny bit of each. The thing here is shifting position. Shifting again. Reaching up. And so there's a couple skills here in the G position that you need to play the minuet. Bottom of 115, it's a very short song. This skill is changing fingers. So there's, why would I do that? Why would I play a note 5 times with a different finger? To move my hand from here to there. It's possible to just jump. It's possible there, but it's a skill. You have to learn that skill to be good at piano. In the second line, this group of notes we have in the minuet. So I will make a video with these songs that kind of prep for the minuet, and then I'm going to make a video for the final, and I'll get that to you over the next probably 2 classes. So I'm going to wrap up with that, and I will see you guys later.